Okay. All right, what's up, everybody? You're chilling here with Noel, yours truly, the Rancho, and my boy Andy Batista, Andy El Chivo, ¿verdad?
Yeah.
Really glad to connect with you, brother. He's out in the Dominican Republic, and we're going to be chatting today about the experience of Hispanos in the United States, how that works into the racial dynamic of the United States, and amongst other things as well. So, yeah, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Andy?
Hey, yeah, so my name is Andy Batista. I have a YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is Chivo2121. So if you will, go ahead and subscribe. Um, Basically, I started a YouTube channel about a year ago. And I'm gonna be honest with you, if you're a bit sensitive, you know what I mean, my channel's probably not for you, but if you don't care, you know what I mean, and go ahead, but I mean, the thing is, I express myself, what I feel inside towards everything that's going on. And so sometimes it comes out pretty harsh, but at the end of the day, that's just how I am. I don't know. That's just the real me.
It's the truth.
Because everything, what I see going on amongst Hispanic, especially Hispanic Americans up there in the United States, it really infuriates me inside, you know, and so I really had to let these people know that what they're doing, it makes me sick, the way they're killing off our heritage. They're killing off our heritage, which is basically what they're doing. They're trying to change everything about our traditional heritage, and I find it utterly disgusting.
Yeah, even our language with the whole. I mean, one of the things that I take a big problem with is the Latinx bullshit. It's like, no, you're either Latino or you're Latina. Our language is a gendered language. Don't try to kill it. And so now you have a lot of these, you call them Hispanicucks, I call them Latinxers, but they're always the same profile. They're either women or they're homosexual, or if they're not, then they're college educated Latinos who think they're superior to the rest of us, who think they know more, and again, they have this anti-Spanish take, which is also anti-machista, anti-man, right? Like they don't like any masculine authority. Anything that's masculine is bad, and so no wonder women, homosexuals, and these soft ass dudes are the ones who go around that. And like you said, they're butchering our culture, they're butchering our language, they're trying to disconnect us from that heritage.
And what gets me is that the irony of it is that these people believe that they are like pro-Hispanic. You know what I mean?
That's the worst
But
part.
it's like their entire belief system is everything attacking traditional Hispanic heritage. It's everything attacking who we actually are. That's what it's like. You're everything the opposite of traditional Hispanic heritage. You know, like
Yeah,
none of
they're making us brown gringos. They're making us rootless and just generic,
they're
these
trying to
shitty
Taco
modern
Bell us.
values. Say it again.
They're trying to Taco Bell us.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to say it, bro. That's exactly what they're doing. And then they're gonna tell us about what it is to be Hispanic. And the funniest thing is, most of them can't even speak Spanish. A lot of them now, are LARPing like they're like either they're black or they're LARPing like they're Native Americans. And it's like, if you went to a town in Guatemala with Native Americans with your bullshit, they'll probably kill you. They'll probably hang your ass.
Hopefully, but
For
sorry,
real, for
but
real.
no, you know what I get. What gets me is that the ones that try to identify as natives, right? They're
Yeah,
almost always like completely white.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's like you don't look native, not even the slightest bit. Calm down. No, but they lie to themselves. They're like, oh, I'm an Indian. Yeah, okay.
Right. So why don't you tell me a bit about, I'm from LA, so my experience, is going to be a little bit different, but still not all the way different. But I want to know more about what it's like being Dominican, growing up in New York City, and how that led you to where you are today with this realization that you have today.
Well, I could have easily in I could have easily gone in the direction of these people. You know what I mean, with the pro-black stuff and all of that. Because in my youth, I was heavily influenced by the hip hop culture. All the black culture stuff, but the thing is, when I would go to school or hang around Dominicans, I would go to their families' houses. You know what I mean? And I noticed the thing is, like, at home amongst my relatives, and they don't like it when I say this, my relatives, but I don't care. Um, I noticed, like, their belief system, the way they are, does not match what I see, like, in the hip hop culture, in the media, of how Hispanics are. I would see these Hispanics dressing like the blacks with the hip hop culture, and as a kid, I was influenced by that stuff too, right? But then when I would go to, like, their parents' houses, right, and spend time around, like, my friends' families and stuff like that, I would realize, like, in the homes, it's the same shit as my home. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the shit that we see on TV. You know, our heritage is not being shown as how it is. You know, but so then I just kind of ignored it. But somewhere along the lines, I guess I felt a need for us as Hispanic people to have a distinction, for us to have an authentic identity, to say this is what we are. We're not we're not gonna get lumped into some nothingness that you're trying to make us into. We are a distinct people with our own shit, with our own thing.
Oh, good. Yeah, our own experience, our own heritage. And I'm assuming, you see, in LA, you have the dynamic. It's not so much black and white. It's more like Mexican and I guess white and I guess black. But obviously, the Mexican presence is much stronger here. I mean, the place is called Los Angeles, right? This used to be Spanish America, right? So the dynamic's a little bit different. But I had some of that same influence where it's like, as a Nicaraguan kid, it was like, well, we kind of listen to salsa music. There's kind of a black influence, but it's not the same it's not black American, right? Like, our African influence is a Spanish African influence. It's not a African American influence at all. And I think that's what happens with people, is that because that identity doesn't exist in this context, then they're forced to either, front like they're completely white, or front like they're black American, which we're not. We are Spanish. We are Hispano. We are our own cultural paradigm. And for me, it's been this whole, I've always kind of felt it, but it's really been lately with the kind of the race riots that came about. If you notice, all the heroes of this BLM shit were all Hispanic, whether they were Mexican gangs in Chicago, or Cubans and Puerto Ricans in Miami, or Dominicans in New York. I don't know if you saw the dude where they were taking the statue down in New Mexico, and he shot the white kid that was going to hit him with the skateboard. The dude was Mexican. Or the Mexican guy. Huh?
By heroes, you mean the people that stood up to the Black Lives Matter?
Exactly. The people who stood up to Antifa and Black Lives Matter and checked them. And I think white people also saw it like, oh shit, like, there is something about Hispanics that we never really noticed.
I think it's a beautiful thing that all this is happening.
Yeah.
It's like, I think after, like, all these riots, I think that was kind of like a smack in the face to Hispanics. Like, hey, this is what's really going on. What are you gonna do? You know what I mean? You don't share these beliefs. You know what I mean? Are you gonna bend over? Basically, that's basically what's been happening. A lot of people have been bending over.
Yeah.
But we don't really, like, I don't know. We don't. I think it's something came out of our subconscious.
Yep.
We're like, well, wait a minute, because that's not part of our culture. Like we don't. That's not instilled in our heritage to just freaking behave that way, right? We have a very
Destroy our neighborhoods.
exactly. We have a very family-oriented community sense, right? And I thought it was funny that the blacks and all these people, like, they didn't understand it, but we understood it because we had our communities,
Right.
and we protected our communities. And this is something that I've longed for a bit, because I remember seeing this in our communities back in the day, but you know what I mean? And I haven't seen it in a while, up until what you're saying started happening.
Right. It's brought it out, and it's made camps real visible. Like you said, there is a lot of the cuckery, and even till this day, I mean, there's Mexican paleteros in Texas getting killed by blacks for no reason. These poor, humble peasant men coming here to find a job. They're not depending on the government to help them. They're figuring it out, and then these crazy fucks come and kill these people, and yet you still have Hispanic, Mexican girls or gays coming trying to act like, oh, there's this black brown unity, which is such a lie.
That's what gets me the most, right? Because it's always the most vulnerable of our groups that get attacked.
Always.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it infuriates me. This is why it infuriates me when I see these people advocating for blacks, right? Because it's like, no, they're not gonna come after you. They're gonna come after your grandfather.
Right.
You know what I mean? Somebody weak in your family.
Yeah, they don't fuck with the G's. They don't fuck with the gangsters. They don't fuck with the people they know are gonna shoot back at them. They fuck with the peasants. They fuck with the poorest, oldest, weaklest people who they know aren't gonna fight back.
Which happens in New York.
Yeah,
it happens in New York. The elderly get picked on the most by these people. And and again, and also the women tend to have always complained about going out into the streets being harassed by blacks,
right,
all the time,
right.
And the problem is, again, this has to do with the media, because the blacks have this mindset. Oh, and if I upload this video, they're gonna put this in the comment section of, oh, the Latin woman loves us. The Latin woman loves us. It's because this is what is pushed in the media, right?
Right.
This is what is pushed in the media. And I'm not saying that those girls don't exist, but it's not to the extent that they make it seem.
Yeah, it's not. I have a black American friend from Texas, right? He grew up in a good family, so he's not like from the hood, but he went to Peru on vacation once, and he's like, oh, Peruvians are racist. And I'm like, what you mean they're racist, man? And he's like, oh, none of the girls were paying attention to me. I'm like, oh, you think that all girls in Latin America have this disease in the mind like the American girls here who are brainwashed? Like, people don't have that black fetish outside of here, especially in Hispanic America, because that's the thing. Like, we had touched a little bit before the conversation about the Spanish and how the Spanish mixed races. Like, they got with the Indians, they took their freed slaves and they mixed in with them. And whether that was good or bad, it is what it is. But the reality is that in the Hispanic paradigm, that taboo wasn't there, right? So that taboo, that kinkiness doesn't exist in like white America, where like, white and black people talk a lot of crap about each other, but they have these kinky fetishes with each other that don't exist in Latin America. Like, I'll give you an example, Andy. My wife, she's a mulatilla. She's morena. She's from Colombia, right? My wife does not like black men at all. She does not. She's only been here for 2 years. Her impression of black people was that they were cool as fuck, that they were funny as fuck, because she's been watching movies and, the black people always had a light spirit and they were funny, and that has changed. And so she came here, and then she feels all the black girls mad dogging her because she's got good hair And she's just like, whoa, I thought black people were nice and funny. And she's like, she's kind of scared of blacks. She kind of avoids blacks because, and this is from a morena from Latin America, you know what I mean? But again, yeah, that fetish doesn't exist outside of here, bro.
You know what I find interesting is that it seems like this thing is funny because my pops brought this up the other day.
Yeah.
That it seems like the darker Hispanics, like the darker Hispanics, dislike blacks more than the whiter Hispanics.
So
I
true.
personally think, I mean, and I understand it though, 100%. You know, and I don't blame them for it. You know, but I think the whiter Hispanics should grow a little bit more of this, but they have it, but they're just not like not to the extent of the darker ones.
Yeah, they're caught up in the same bullshit that white Americans are caught up in, kind of being this like fake polite, this kind of white guilt or whatever you want to call it, like or like feeling sorry, or like you've said it, they're scared of blacks, you know.
Yes.
And for me personally, I've never been scared of blacks because I grew up around them and I fought them just like I fought anybody else. So it was like there was nothing to be afraid of. But touch on that. I know you've talked about what's that dynamic like in New York for Dominicans or other people from Las Antillas. How does that work with the blacks down up there?
Well, I can only speak for my own experience.
Yeah.
Because somebody else would probably have a different experience, and they'll come on here and be like, "That's not how it is."
Right.
You know. So, in my experience when I was younger, I wasn't conscious of this kind of thing between blacks and Hispanics.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't conscious of it. What I always have been since I could remember, it was like proud to be Hispanic. You know what I mean? And wanted to be amongst my own group. You know, when I was a kid, hanging out with other Hispanics that, you know, even the ones that adopted the hip hop culture and all of that, I wanted to hang out with them, and I wanted us to kind of see ourselves as a distinct people, separate from Hispanics, and I felt that that's how we saw it ourselves. I felt that that's how they saw it too, and so for some reason, I never knew why, we did have issues with blacks, you know, back then, and me, I was always down for it because just for the simple fact that I'm like, oh, I'm for my people. You know what I mean? If these people have a problem with my people, then I have a problem with them. You know? So that's all it was to me. But today it's something completely different. You know? It's like on a political level, you know, all of that. And
how do you see it? How do you see it today with, like, you know, imagine if you were younger and you were growing up now. I think personally the Obama administration, you know, kind of changed a lot. It kind of changed America in a very weird way. But how do you think it's like being a young Dominican kid in New York City now? You feel like they're way more disconnected from their roots than maybe you're in my generation were?
Absolutely. I think in like the past 15 to 20 years, things have changed drastically for the worse. I remember when I was a kid, I used to go to these parades, like Dominican Day parades, and then there would be like an after party kind of thing, block party kind of thing, and up in Washington Heights. And I remember one particular scenario when I was pretty quiet back then, though. You know what I mean? I was a little bit reserved, and this was in the Dominican freaking parade up in Washington Heights, where quiet and reserved was not what was happening there. But I was there just observing, right? And I was not really like racially conscious or anything, but I just remember, you know, there were two two or three morenos, a group of like two or three morenos, right? And I guess they tried to kick it to some girls over there, right? And so one of them yelled, because I guess they ignored him. They ignored them and kept walking. And one of them yelled, "That's that Dominican shit." You know what I mean? First of all, this tells you the difference of today from back then. He said, "That's that Dominican shit," because they ignored him and walked away. That means that they were used to that from Dominican girls.
Right.
And this is the type of reputation they had back then, right? So that's the first thing. But then the second thing was there was a group of guys. Remember, I was a kid and I was just observing. I noticed there was a group of guys over there that they heard this, and they were talking about beating those guys' asses. And I was like, and not even racially conscious or anything, but just the fact that they're from an outside group and they were behaving this way towards our group. You know, I wanted to join in and beat their ass too. You know? But I mean, of course, nothing ended up happening. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But
that shows the dynamic, and I think, you know, I always tell people, like, if you want to know the future of America, how it's going to work within the races, I'm like, go to a prison, because if you go to a prison, you're going to see that it doesn't matter what nationality of Hispanic America you're from, we all program together inside. You know what I'm saying? And I know some of them get caught up. Some of them get caught up in kind of the black gangs, but that's whatever. It's like you say, that they belong to them. They don't belong to us. We don't care.
I don't know about today, but I know back then those that got caught up in the black gangs were very few. Mm-hmm. So I don't know about today. But however, yeah, that is true. Like, if you, it seems like it didn't matter. I remember a particular case where, okay, I don't want to go into too much detail, but when I spent some time in jail, locked up in jail. All right. There was it was a dormitory, I guess you would call it. Yeah. Just a cell block or a cell block, right? In the general population, and it was like split between the Hispanics and the blacks, basically the Hispanic gang and the black gang, right? And I would notice, like, even like in that particular situation, right? They try to keep the blacks and the Hispanics try to keep a peace amongst each other, because the numbers were kind of even, and they didn't want to cause like a riot, you know, because it would have caused a lot of damage, whatever. They just wanted it to be peaceful. But however, so I remember with the Hispanics, even if like another Hispanic came on that was from another Hispanic gang that was, you know, not very friendly, whatever, because they were Hispanic, they still tried to kind of like,
program,
you know, work, program together, because of the type of situation they were in with the blacks over there. And then now this is true. After I left, and I'm not saying this because I left, but after I left, the blacks did end up turning against the Hispanic, and then the riot did break out.
Wow. Yeah, no. I mean, I've heard the dynamic is still largely the same, you know, whether East Coast or West Coast. You know, the Latinos are always going to program together, and it doesn't even matter if you're a darker skinned Latino. You know, you're still going to program with your culture, with your people. And that's part of that's what's hard for, I think, Black Americans and white Americans to understand about Latin America, is that, you know, I'm sure, I mean, in my family, like, you know, I'm probably slightly on the lighter side, but I got cousins that are redhead and look German, and I got cousins who are dark, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, we don't necessarily divide ourselves based purely on color. There is a cultural difference that unites us. And it's hard for the American mind to understand that. So that's why they have difficulty with us. They don't know where to classify us. They don't know where to place us. And the blacks do the same thing. And, you know, talking about how blacks get along with other blacks, even like Africans don't like Black Americans, like Nigerians or Ethiopians, like, especially out here in California, the Nigerians tend to have a lot of money. They tend to be professional. They tend to be very conservative. They tend to be very traditional. And I have a Nigerian lawyer friend, and I know that if his daughter brought home a Black American kid as a boyfriend, he'd probably want to blow his brains out. And this is a Black African,
No, I've heard about this, but to be honest though, I do believe that it's because the Nigerians that come here are like carefully selected. You know what I mean? Like they don't just bring any Nigerians over here.
Right. The upper class.
But anyway, yeah. But I mean, to be honest with you, yes, that is true what you said about the Hispanic people in Latin America. That's very true. They don't have a racial identity. You know what I mean?
I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying it's not such a overemphasized thing where, and if it is, it's a new thing that's being introduced, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. But I mean, my thing is though, I don't know how to explain it, is that I personally, think that like, okay, race is real. Like for example, right? For example, I am a descendant of Spanish ancestry. You know what I mean? And I honor this ancestry. I respect it, and it is something to honor. You know what I mean? It's our ancestors. They didn't come here and were just given everything. They didn't just come here and just find stuff and just say, oh, we're taking everything. Anybody that says that is just straight up lying. What they accomplished here was one of the greatest accomplishments in history. And it was earned. It was 100% earned. And they deserve our respect. We are their descendants.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that brings us back to the Black legend, right? Where it's like America, because it comes from the English, has always had a bias against the Spanish. And, think about it. Like, if you look south to the border, if you're one of the founding fathers of America and you see this gigantic piece of land controlled by these people, with all the resources, all these people in it, and it must be a little intimidating. If I was Thomas Jefferson, I'd be a little intimidated. And so, but they inherited that bias against the Spanish, and they try to paint the Spanish as bad people. And it's and like you said, that's dishonoring our ancestors. The best men of Spain, the bravest, the boldest, the most ambitious, the hardest working, came to Spanish America and never went back. Right? The best men. And we should be so proud of that because, like you said, these men not only fought, they built. I mean, you can go all over Latin America and see beautiful towns that these people built, these people civilized, these people worked very hard. And for us to reject that, it really serves the ancestral enemies of our fathers, which were the English and the Jews.
Yeah. I do believe, that there is a lot of riffraff, like that issue with the Spanish and the Anglos.
Yeah.
And I personally think that has to do with Jewish influence, like you said, because we had the Inquisition, and so when the Jews started leaving, they went to the UK, right?
Right. Yeah. That they went to. I mean, a big chunk of them went to Turkey, but a big chunk of them went to Amsterdam, and they went to England. So Isabella and Ferdinand, the same year that they reconquered the Iberian Peninsula and kicked the Moors out, they kicked the Jews out. Or they said either convert and adopt our culture and our values or get the fuck out. And what most of them did was they left. A few converted, or maybe they pretended to convert, and they kind of hid it. And so that was kind of always an issue. But in England, they basically went over there, and they're the ones who really financed the English Empire. They bankrolled that experiment. To this day, the elite banking families are all come from those. And that resentment hasn't gone away. And it's sad that the everyday Anglo has fallen victim to be kind of a foot soldier for that. But the Anglos need to wake up, because at the end of the day, that system is just as bad for their people as it is for anybody else's, right? It hasn't benefited them, because now look at the situation Anglos are in. For all your wealth and all your power and all your, IQ or whatever you like to defend, what good is it if you don't reproduce, if you're kneeling and kissing boots, if you're disintegrating? And it's because your values have been influenced, like you said, by Judaism.
Yeah. I think you're right, and I think that a lot of them would agree with you if you told them that.
Yeah.
You know, but this thing about Jewish people is that they don't seem to like anybody or get along with anybody. You know,
they only like you as much as they can use you.
Yeah, that's how it seems. And so back to our Spanish identity. I remember not too long ago, right? I don't know if you saw this video. Somebody sent me this video on Twitter of this girl in New York City. I think you know which one I'm talking about. Where she was just walking in she was walking towards I think it was on 42nd Street, towards the freaking bus terminal.
Right.
And and so what ended up happening was some black guy, for some reason, she started recording when he started flashing money.
Right.
And when I saw the money flashing in the face, I was like, oh, this guy is black. Like that's such a black thing to do. Only black people will pull out money and say, look what I got.
Right.
But so anyway, so he said to her, this girl, she's Dominican American. She her name on, I think on Twitter, is like all Black Lives Matter or something. She has the hashtag All Black Lives Matter. Right. He said to her, this is a black guy in New York. He said to her, you Spanish? You don't think you look Spanish? He said that to her. And I just thought that was funny, because these people that look like her are in New York City believing that they're black because this is what they're being told. Only because that's what they're told. And so I just thought that was interesting. Oh, and we also have to get on this idea, which is a lie, this lie that these African Americans have been spewing, right? They've been spewing it so much that now Hispanic Americans, the ones that behave like the African Americans, dress like them and behave like them and think that they are black, then they come to me and say that the Spanish don't claim you. This is such bullshit, BS, and it bothers me so much, and they need to be told that it's BS.
Yeah. Well, why are they repeating that? Because at the end of the day, they're black gringos. They, whether they like to admit it or not, they come from the gringos and they have that same anti-Spanish bias. And they don't want us to feel empowered about our heritage. They want us to feel ashamed about our Spanish blood. They want us to feel like we're children of rape, which is such a fucking lie. Okay, first off, Hispanos are handsome people. Okay, Spanish men are handsome men. They came here, they fought, they built. These men knew how to read and write. They knew how to play instruments. You think they had a hard time convincing a woman to throw themselves at them? But it just shows how they are. It shows that they're the rapists. It shows that they can't get women unless they steal it from them. They can't seduce. They don't know how to charm. They don't have that Latin lover in them.
It's like they have to tell these people, hey, you're not Spanish. The Spanish don't claim you. They have to say that to get the woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like me, I don't have to tell any woman. I don't have to tell a black girl that she's Hispanic for me to sleep with her, to get with her. I don't have to tell a white girl that she's Hispanic for me to get with her.
Right. Right. That's true. That's absolutely true. And so, but that's rooted in the strategy that was used to split our empire apart. You know what I'm saying? Because our empire wasn't one class of people fighting another class of people, or one race of people fighting another race of people. It was Spaniards fighting Spaniards, and most of the Indians actually fought on the side of the crown. They wanted to keep the crown because it worked. That system worked for them. It was these Latinxers, these Hispanicucks from back in the day, who saw what happened in Anglo-American and said, oh, we should do some of the same stuff. Instead of looking inside in their own culture and being proud of it, they looked at somebody else and they tried to copy somebody else's thing. And all it's done for us is destroy our or attack our identity, basically force us to be a peasant class, open up our lands and our resources for foreign extraction instead of for our own use. But that's where they get it from, you know, and it's so not true, because countries like Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and Cuba, they didn't even fight for independence. They were stolen from Spain, you know, and it was the same thing in Central America. Like Nicaragua never fought against the Spanish. It never even fought against the Mexico when we were part of Mexico. We were just kind of like, hey, you're your own country now. You know what I mean? And so we rolled with it. But even in countries like Mexico, Colombia, Peru, and Argentina, where the war was really more focused, it wasn't like the people fought to separate themselves from Spain. It was like this rich elite manipulated the people and basically stole these countries away from our empire. And we've been suffering ever since, man.
I mean, kind of like what's happening today to Anglo-America, right?
Exactly what's happening to them.
So another thing is like, it's like in Dominican Republic, right? The history here is we had a war in 1844. That was to get rid of the, we were under like a 22-year Haitian occupation.
Right.
Right. So we kicked them out. That was a necessary war. You know, that's the one that's celebrated here. Mm-hmm. You know, that's highly celebrated. Then there was another one in 1865 where it was what you're talking about. They call it the Restoration War, right? But it's like where they gained their independence from Spain, you know. And to me, I look at this country, I'm like, well, that was completely unnecessary. That was like, there was no reason for that to even happen. Like we had these Haitian savages on the other side. Yeah, we needed to keep them at bay because these people were ruthless. Right. They would come in and do all this ruthless stuff. Right. You know what I mean? Under an occupation and try to govern us and do all this messed up stuff. Yeah, we had to get them out. We did, right? Then for what reason? I'm like, my whole thing is like, for what reason did we need to separate ourselves from Spain? Like we're distinct people, separate from these people over here. You know what I mean? Right. And you know, like,
well, it was Masons. You know, it was this Masonic type of class that just saw what everybody else was doing and wanted to do the same thing.
And the thing is, I believe that war was like controlled on both sides. You know, there were Masons on both sides.
Totally, yeah. I mean, Spain suffered from the same thing. Like, you know, and this is what we're highlighting is, you know, I forget who the philosopher was that said it, but he's like, basically, as we dig into history, our history, we develop that consciousness. We start realizing why things are the way they are. We reach back to our roots and we're able to kind of establish the present in a better way. But so one of the things to understand is that in Spain, what happened was that there was what's called the War of Spanish Succession, which is one royal family was taken out, and which was the Habsburgs, right? Who had the Spanish Empire at its peak. And then the Bourbons came in, and the Bourbons were a French royal line, and they were very liberal. And they basically fumbled the ball, right? They were very liberal, so they kind of went on with this kind of Masonic stuff that was going on in Europe as well. And they ended up fumbling the ball. And again, that served...
I think the French have a pretty bad history of fumbling the ball.
Totally. Totally. I mean, the French Revolution is a crucial win for liberalism and masonry around the world, because it did away with a natural hierarchy, which is not a bad thing. It did away with kings, right? And it ultimately did away with fatherhood and masculinity, because 200 years later, everybody's a transsexual now. And it's because you got rid of this natural order, both in the nation state, but in the family unit as well. And that's why feminism came about. Because now it's like, well, if we don't need a father for the nation, why do we need a father for the home? And so really this effort of us kind of reaching back and re-Hispanicizing ourselves is also an effort of re-masculating ourselves, right? And that's the beauty of Hispanic culture, that we have this reputation for being macho, which is a good thing. It's probably the one thing that's kept us still alive, because if we didn't have that, we would be like the Hispanic cucks, we would be basically like these effeminate men, and there goes our heritage. There goes all the accomplishments of our ancestors, from Spain or even from the Americas or from wherever else they came from, because it doesn't matter. They're our ancestors, and we appreciate them both. But it's that machista vein, that machista vein in our culture that's keeping us like, nah, we're not letting this go.
That's what's at the root of our heritage that always kept it together, the machismo culture.
Absolutely. Just like a father keeps a family together, right? Like that's the role of a father. He protects, he provides, and he guides his children. And so the process of us kind of reconquering what was ours is also a process of us really becoming the men that maybe our fathers were weak, you know what I'm saying? And that doesn't matter. We shouldn't judge them. We should forgive them and appreciate them no matter what. But it gives us an opportunity to step up to the plate and be even better men, realizing that the better men we are in the traditional sense, the better our people will do over long term.
Absolutely. And when as I spew my message to the world, right? Yeah. I get individuals that I talk to, right? Like Hispanic individuals that I talk to, and they're like, "Oh man, you're fighting a lost cause. It's hopeless." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm telling you yourself personally, for one, fix the relationship with your father. Just do it. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter if nobody else is doing it. You do it. If everybody does it, that would be good. But if not, you do it.
Right. It's a major step. And here's what we have to recognize: the role that the women play, because a lot of the time the dynamic is that if the moms are putting the kids up against the dads, painting the dad to be authoritarian and old-fashioned and controlling, and he doesn't let you dress this way, or he doesn't let you listen to this type of music. But as we grow older, as you've become a man, as I've become a man, we realize like, no, that's actually good. That's what they were supposed to be. You, mom, you were getting in the way of dad being dad, and you made us suffer for it.
Yeah, man. Let me tell you something, man. When I realized, when I grew up and I realized this reality, and I see this in my family, and it disgusts me and it makes me sick to my stomach, and sometimes I speak very brutal and I'm very harsh, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I speak very harsh to my relatives too, because they don't get it. They don't get it. They think in a very simple sense, right? In a very simple sense, like basically, me want food right now. How are you gonna get me food right now? Like for example, when my video went viral, they don't get it. They just don't get it. They're like, me scared now. They're gonna hit me. That's how they think. Yeah. They just like they don't get it. And so
they've been brainwashed.
It's interesting that,
They've been brainwashed.
Yeah. But it's interesting that we're talking about this right now, because I had this issue yesterday. You know what I mean? Like, right now I'm not on my pop's property. I'm at another relative's house. Mm-hmm. And apparently this relative has an issue with me being here. You know what I mean? And I went off on I went off on this relative. I feel bad for it though. I feel bad for now, but it's like at the same time I still think that I'm right, because it's like, wait a minute, because this person was trying to like disown me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, you're trying to disown me. Like, what? You think this is a family? I told her, you think this is a family? This isn't a family, you know. But anyway, that's too much information.
No, I understand. I
But
understand.
but
Well,
no, like I
the
feel like the thing is like the thing is like overall, I just feel like sometimes I just have to step up and just tell them how it is. Otherwise, we'll never get anywhere. We'll destroy ourselves.
Yeah, we
You know?
will, dude. And then you have to speak up, man. You have to speak up when there's evil and there's wrong. And yeah, people are gonna get offended. People aren't gonna like it. But over time, people are gonna wake up to it. Maybe not them, but somebody else who was there listening or hearing is gonna be like, you know what? Andy's not wrong. Like, you know what? The stuff that Noel is saying isn't out of pocket. Like, it's actually the truth. It may sound harsh, but that's the reality of the situation. But it seems to me, Andy, that in Latin America, they're getting influenced by the same propaganda here, right? So now you're starting to see a lot of feminism come in, a lot of, again, anti-Catholicism, you can call it Spanishism.
It's starting to seep in. Yeah.
Yeah, and these racial tensions that have never existed. Like, we have blacks in Nicaragua, but that racial tension of black and white never existed. But it's because the darker Nicaraguans are coming here, they're being absorbed by the black Americans here, and so now all of a sudden they suffer from the same experience, which is a complete fucking lie. And then they go back and then they start promoting that same bullshit. Or you have, young cute girls on Instagram. They're catching the same styles, the same fashions as whatever is hip and cool in the United States. And so now they're crying for George Floyd or whatever. And it's like, that's so irrelevant to us.
You know what I love though? Like, I'm here in Dominican Republic. I feel like because I'm an American, listen, I'm, well, I mean, you know how it is, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like I have some influence. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like if I see a girl with braids in her hair, right? I tell her, I don't like that. Don't put your hair like that. I kid you not, the next day I saw this girl with her hair straight.
Amen, brother. That's right. And so this goes back to what we were saying, that it's like this moment is splitting up the camps. It's making us realize that no, we're not female, we're not homosexuals, we're not these beta cucks, Hispanics. We're that last remnant of that macho Hispanic. And there's no coincidence in that, a lot of us have gone through kind of a criminal experience or a gang affiliation as we came up in age, because it was a way to express that vigor, that masculine vigor, where it's like, well, I don't really have access to a farm. I can't box, with my cousins like maybe I would have if I was growing up at home. So what do? You join a gang and you get into some trouble, but that's just boys being boys. But
boys need to be boys.
Absolutely. And it's the same group of Hispanos in the United States that, like you and me, are waking up and are saying, like, nah, we need to be the men for our people. We need to help guide our daughters and our sisters and our cousins and make sure that they don't go this wrong way. We need to be examples for our other little cousins of how a man should act and how a man should be. And he should speak, truth to power, even if it hurts him, because that is the truth. So that's a good thing, man. That's totally a good thing.
Absolutely. Our message is like 100% positive. You know what I mean? Even though sometimes I come off really harsh, people, and this is how you know you're working with evil forces, right? Mm-hmm. When they're coming to me with this idea of tolerance for gays and blacks and all this destructive ideas that destroy the family. I mean, people that listen, there's people that I know, like, their father died, right? They didn't even feel it. Didn't go to his funeral. Why? Because of the hate you spoke about earlier for their father, right? And they're coming to me telling me that I'm spewing negative energy. You know what I mean? When really my message is really about bringing the family together. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
it's really actually contrary. You know?
It's what produces happy human beings, man. You know, a child needs his mother, and he needs his father. He needs both, but if anything, he needs the father more, because the father is where he gets his strength. It's where he gets his confidence from. It is where he gets his discipline and his work ethic from. You know what I'm saying? And the system has been set up to make us reject that. Why? Because it wants us to be vulnerable to their propaganda. It wants us to be manipulated. And I think the system is having a hard time with Hispanics, even though it may look like they're kind of been able to penetrate, but only to a certain extent. And now we're here and we're like, no, we need to go back to forming traditional families where, you know, it's the father as the head, the mother runs the house and helps raise the children, but it's the father's responsibility to provide and protect and guide them all. And, you know, from my personal experience, I've been married for 2 years. My wife's extremely happy. My wife's a stay-at-home wife. She gets to basically be the queen of her own house. She takes care of her son, and she doesn't have to worry about bills and tickets and stress. None of that. She just gets to play with her boy all day.
And that's how you create a balance in the home. That's a healthy balance, you know?
Right.
Like, I've always come across these women that they're like, oh, I'm a strong and independent woman. I hate this mentality of these women that they have, this mentality. And and I try to explain to them, like, how does this type of life work? Because this idea is not really structured. It's not structured for a healthy balance in the home, right? Because these people, you know, you're working, he's working, you come home, who's gonna cook? You know?
Yeah. Who's gonna give the kids love? Who's gonna pick them up when they fall and they scrape their knees? You know what I'm saying? Like when you can't serve two masters. You try to do two things at the same time, you're gonna fail at both. And they've definitely pushed that into Hispanic women. You know, they definitely have pushed that. But I think what we're seeing is that they bumped into the Hispanic man, and all they're doing is waking him up. And there's a lot more of us. The thing is that the hardworking Hispanic man that works two jobs, he's not on social media. He's too busy working, right? He's not watching telenovelas. He's not watching TV at home. He's too busy working. But what they're doing is that they're poking this guy and they're waking him up. And there's gonna be a correction. We're gonna wake up and we're gonna be like, no, this thing is not going in the right direction. We see where white people have gone, where they don't have strong families anymore. They don't have order in their homes, and we see the destruction that they're dealing with. And we see the same destruction with blacks. They don't have that order, and we're like, no. We're going back to our roots, going back to our tradition. We're going back to hold the families that made us here, you know? Like, you know, look at your grandpa. I'm sure your grandpa was probably 1 out of 6, 7, 10 kids, and he probably had 5 or 6. And then our dads maybe had 3 or 4. And then now we're lucky if we have 1. But we need to go back to grandpa, you know?
No, you're right. Not even my grandpa. My dad had 11 kids.
See? You know? Beautiful. And that's going away. They're trying to make that go away.
My grandfather also had 11 kids. My grandfather also had 11 kids, but I you know, the funny thing is with my dad is like it seems like my there's some respect for my dad, but it seems like I'm the one that really was like, hold on a second, why am I really mad at my dad? You know what I mean? I kind of just sat back and was like, why don't I just try to have a relationship with my dad instead of being mad? You know, like, why do I need to be mad? You know? Yeah, I mean, It's like he wasn't perfect, you know what I mean? But he didn't, even if he wasn't a good dad, he didn't kill anybody, he didn't rape anybody, you know what I mean?
Right.
So why do I have to be mad at him? So and so this was also the case with my grandfather. It's like, but the thing is, like, it's like out of 11, only one will get it. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what, brother? That will be enough, man. That will be enough, because you know that if we found ourselves in a bar fight and it's only you and me, we're gonna take care of 6 motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't need a whole army in order to fix things or set things back in their place. Because why? Because we're attached to that, like, cosmic root. We're attached to our Father, right? We don't have that resentment towards him, which gives us, honestly, it lets our Father in heaven operate better in our hearts. So it gives us, in a sense, kind of this superhuman strength where it's like, no, we can make miracles happen, because again, we don't have any resent. We're actually seeking to follow what God told us to do, which is to honor our father and mother.
Absolutely. It's like, and the funny thing is, I feel like now that you bring God into it and you talk about how making this connection, you're connecting with God.
Yeah.
And I think about it, and I think back a bit, and I feel like ever since I came to this realization, things just started working out for me, like naturally. Beautiful. For some reason, even though I'm a little worried. I mean, I'm here. I'm not starving. I'm eating pretty good.
Yeah. All good, man. Yeah, it's true, man, because God is real, and miracles do happen, and grace is real, and when you seek God's ways, like, he does bring you fruit, and things just start happening on their own. And it was very much the same experience with me. I didn't grow up with my dad. My dad, was a typical Latino. He had, 2 or 3 baby mamas and a kid here and a kid there. And again, he did the best with what he knew, what he had access to, the truth he had access to. He did his best job with it. And I'm no one to judge him for it. I'm grateful I came out of him. If I didn't come out of him, I wouldn't exist. And just like on a micro level, we can apply that to our dads. We need to apply that to our Spanish heritage, because our Spanish heritage is our paternal root. If you test the DNA of Hispanics from northern Mexico to southern Chile, overwhelmingly the paternal DNA comes from Spain. And that's what brings Hispanic America together, where maybe we all had different moms. Maybe the mom in the Caribbean is different from the mom in Mexico, different from the mom in Peru, different from the mom in Argentina. But at the end of the day, we all come from the same dad. And the reality is, and this gets really almost esoteric, Andy, because the reality is, we existed in our dad's nuts before we existed. It is true. We existed before we existed in our mom's womb. We give moms all the credit, but the reality is that the father is the one who gives the sex, right?
Yeah.
You get your sex chromosome from your father.
He initiates it,
Yeah,
men
absolutely.
always.
He's the seed. He's the seed. The woman is the pot of soil. And but the seed comes from the dad. And so it's like, we existed before our mothers. Our mothers gave us some flavor. It changed the characteristics of the grape, but the seed of the grape is really where it comes from. And that's what brings us together. It's what makes a Dominican my brother, and it makes a Mexican my brother, and it makes a Peruvian, Argentinian, Colombian, Costa Rican. It doesn't matter. We're all brothers, because we all come from the same. And that's really how it used to be. And so now, Andy, what it's causing us to wake up to our history and realize, like, what were those 300 years like of the Spanish Empire? What was the economy like? What was the quality of life like? What was conflicts and war? And I really have to drop Mundo Republiqueto. They're a great team, dude, because they compile all this history and they show we were way richer, we were way more powerful, we were way more peaceful. Like, there wasn't all these civil conflicts, there wasn't these armed gangs controlling a piece of the country. Like, no, we had civilized, orderly societies. And along the way, we had a bump in the road and we let go of that. But it's not too late for us. You know, our roots are still alive. And furthermore, Doug, it connects to this moment where if you look at the demographics of Latin America, there's 650 million of us, okay? The average age of a Hispano is 22 years old. The average age of an Anglo in America is 58 years old. And for every one Anglo who's 58, there's 4 Hispanos that are 22.
Oh, man.
That's the moment that you and I are waking up in. And so we have to realize, like, what did we let go? What did we give up? What did we lose out on? And it goes through a process of connecting with your father, connecting with your paternal heritage, reconnecting with God, and then forging that path through. And you're ahead of the curve because you've already gone back. And I think American Hispanos, we really have an advantage because we have that experience. We have access to more capital. We can go back to our countries and make bigger things happen than if we were back there. And it's a nice opportunity.
Definitely. And I wanted to bring up, something that we spoke about earlier before off the record about how, it's interesting. We have to point out the fact that these ideas that we share. It's like our ideas are identical. We want to connect with Spain. Everything that you said about connecting with our paternal fathers. It's 100% in line with my beliefs, and these are like something that I pretty much came across on my own. This isn't something that you see in the media. It's not something that you're taught in school. Mm-hmm. Not in Anglo America. Right. You know what I mean? None of this stuff. It just kind of happened naturally. Just me looking at myself like, this is my identity. You know what I mean? Like, stop messing around. This is my identity. And then you had the same experiences, but yet I grew up in New York, as a Hispanic in New York. You grew up as a Hispanic in LA. You know what I mean? And of course, there's different environments, different types of Hispanics, right. But we still managed to have this idea. So it's like we are coming together. We're waking up, and it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
We're waking up to the same conclusion. We're like coming to the same conclusion of our identity.
And again, it coincides with this demographic moment where the average Hispano is in his 20s, he's in his prime, and there's 4 of us, right? And then you look at situations like Europe where it's falling apart. Europe is basically becoming, Middle East and Africa, and it's because their values have degenerated. They've given into. I like to say it like this, Andy. Here in LA, you'll see, a white guy who may have come from money and he has a good career, and he's driving around in a nice car, and he goes to the stop sign, and up next to him pulls up.
I hang out over here in this kiosco.
Okay. So, a lot of stuff going on. But So back to the point. So this white guy's in his nice car, and he's at the stoplight, and then this Mexican man in this old rusted beat up truck with all his gardening tools in the back pulls up next to him, and he's listening to his traditional music, and the white guy looks at him and he thinks like, fuck, this man has something I could never buy. He has a wife who's waiting for him at home. He has good kids that are waiting for him to come home. He still has his culture. He still has his roots. And I may have this nice car, but I can't buy that which he has. And it shows how our values are way different from the liberal, Judaic, Anglo-Masonic values. Like, I'm not saying that we don't like money. Money helps with a lot of things, but it's not our God. We'd rather sit down with our children, listening to our traditional music, sharing food with our loved ones, and just having that, even if it means we don't have iPads or we don't have, Trader Joe's and Whole Foods. It doesn't matter. We have mango trees and chickens in the backyard. We don't need that shit.
Yeah, tell me about it. There's a mango tree. Every other tree here is a mango tree or some avocado tree or something. You can just take it right off the tree.
Yeah, and nobody is starving, you know. Maybe we don't have $300 Jordans down there, but nobody is starving. You know what I'm saying? Whereas like here you go to LA. LA looks worse than Nicaragua, dude. I mean, there's so many homeless everywhere. Like it's just crazy. And even in my neighborhood in Managua, you know, I have a house out there. You know, there's like the neighborhood drunk. But even that dude, even if it's a choso made the sing, you know, of galvanized steel, he still has his own little house. He has his own little chickens, and he has his own little mango tree.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he'll come and he'll wash your car for a couple bucks or whatever. He'll do you an errand. You know what I mean? But we still have that community. The neighbors still talk to each other. You know, here I don't even know half of my neighbors' names. You know what I'm saying? And so I think the Anglo-American sees it, and they're realizing too. They're like, damn, we've lost something. You know, something's been stolen from us too. And so they're kind of having this wake up moment of like, you know, maybe we shouldn't, you know, be such haters against Hispanics because they have something to teach us at the end of the day. And I got a lot of white nationalist followers on Twitter who hit me up and they're like, you know what, man, a lot of the shit you said in the beginning kind of pissed me off, but you're right. Like you everything you're saying is right. We've lost a lot of our roots and we're trying to grab onto something, but we don't even know what to grab onto anymore. But the blessing is, Andy, that in a sense God hasn't abandoned us. We don't have we don't have our eyes closed trying to grab onto something. We have real things to still grab onto. We still have our folkloric traditional music. We still have our folkloric traditional way of dress. You know what I'm saying? Our culture is still alive. It may be on life support, but it's still alive.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. But anyway, I think it's time to wrap it up, honestly, because I'm kind of hungry right now.
Yeah. What you gonna eat, brother? What are you gonna eat?
I mean, just
what's on the menu?
nothing.
What's on the menu?
Honestly, well, no, I mean, honestly, just rice and beans, rice and beans, and
rice and beans and a little bit of meat. And I guarantee you, it's all organic, and it doesn't even have to be certified. It came from the land, man.
Yeah, you know one thing. Dominicans Dominicans consume 80% of what they produce. You know, that's something somebody told me, but it is true. You know,
yeah, it all comes from the land.
Over here, what they consume comes from here.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good thing for us. Andy, it's been a pleasure, brother. I'm really glad that we've been able to connect and have a meeting of the minds, and I'm really looking forward to it because I feel like we're at the first hour in a new moment in history. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I think God is placing, you know, a certain burden on our shoulders. Perhaps he's pushing us to be those leaders, right? He's pushing us to be the adelantado, which is, you know, it was a title that the Spanish gave to the conquistadors. The adelantado was the first conquistador out in the middle of nowhere, and so it's like we're picking up that same heritage, and a lot of young brothers of ours, they're looking for this stuff, and so I'm really glad, brother, and I'm sure we'll be doing this a lot more.
Definitely. It was a good talk.
Sí, hombre, cuídate, un placer, hermano, disfruta tu tierra y ojalá pronto estaré yo en la mía.
Ok, está bien entonces, gracias.
Amén, hermano. Chao.
Hablamos.